Hey, welcome back. Man, it's been a while, but we are back on another episode of the Prize Podcast where we talk about how sports and the Christian worldview intersect one another. It's good to have all of you back here on the show. And thank you for being patient with me. I've had a crazy couple weeks. The first week I was out because of I was at a men's retreat and was very blessed to have that. But then as I was getting ready for the next week, I was going to record an episode, but then I got sick and my whole entire family got sick. And then obviously, we know for many of us what happened after that because many of us in the Southeast or pretty much in South Carolina, North Carolina, and some of our areas were dealing with some of the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. And so I want to talk about that in a little bit and kind of give some perspective on that while connecting that back to the spiritual part and with the sports world. I do have a couple things I wanted to give to you. One is I would love to talk about baseball. I know it's been a while since we talked about baseball, but I do want to kind of give you a couple of updates on some things that have happened recently and just kind of giving a spiritual perspective on this. One would be the Detroit Tigers, and I'm looking at my bracket right now to kind of give the accurate picture. The Detroit Tigers are playing the Cleveland Guardians. Pretty crazy that you've got some lower seeds on that American League side. With Detroit being a six seed, they moved on from the wild card, and now they're going to be playing in the ALDS. Or sorry, I I'm getting mixed up on my words right now. Oh man, I'm about to guys. It's been a while, so but the American League division, so they're going to be in that series for the just for that divisional round, and then it will be the championship series after that. They will play the winner of the New York Yankees, my favorite team, and the Kansas City Royals. Then on the other side, sorry, Braves fans, it did not work out. They were swept by the Padres, and so the Padres are going to be facing the Los Angeles Dodgers. Hopefully, the Padres can beat them because we're tired of seeing the Dodgers. At least I am. Um, Philadelphia Phillies, they were the ones that came out of Atlanta's region and did really, really well. They've done really well all season. They're going to move on in their National League Championship Series, but they're going to be in the division first. So they'll be in the divisional playoffs, and they'll play the winner of the Milwaukee Brewers and the New York Mets. Shout out to one of my friends from church, Jerry Horton, a big Mets fan. I'm sure that he is going to want them to win tonight. They are tied 1-1 in the series. One of the interesting stories that I thought was pretty intriguing was seeing that Kansas City had 106 losses, and to come back from that in a previous year and then come and be in the divisional playoffs for the American League is pretty incredible. So I wanted to go ahead and give a big shout out for them and say, well done for, and especially them being a five seed. They're going to be playing the New York Yankees. Yankees are hit or miss sometimes. They can do really well, and then sometimes they do really poorly. They've done pretty decently well to win their division. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how they play against a Kansas City team who is very hot right now. Um, but it's really interesting when we look like and think that things are down and out. That can be the opportunity where God will sometimes, or a lot of times, He'll show His strength. One story I was reminded of this week that illustrates this well is when Moses is and the people of God are in face of the Amalekites. The Amalekites come in and they attack the Israelites when they are weary, after they have crossed the Red Sea. They have been through a couple of moments in the wilderness, and then the Amalekites or the Amalekites were the ones that came in and tried to attack when God's people were weary. But what we see is we see that Moses has a reliance on God's power in such a way where it's a really interesting story. You see Moses lifting his hands in the book of Exodus. I think this is in Exodus 17, going into chapter 17, end of 17, going into chapter 18. And anytime he has his hands down, the people of God are overcome by the Amalekites. Anytime that he has his hands up, the Amalekites are suppressed and the people of God are winning. And a lot of people look at that and say, that sounds kind of weird. That story seems interesting. I think it's a pretty cool story because it shows us the power of trust and reliance on God's power. That right now, in every circumstance that we are in, we can only trust in God's power to overcome any situation, whether that be a financial, a physical, a mental situation. Very many times, and especially in sports, we can get into the aspect of thinking that we can't overcome. Well, we can't, not without God's power to rely on um, during these times that are so desperate. Um, Another thing I want to talk about is the miraculous. You hear that story that I just told you about the miraculous, and I'm also reminded of a miraculous ending to a game that happened this past Thursday. If you've been watching recently, Miami and Virginia Tech played a game at Hard Rock Stadium. It went really, really close near the end. Virginia Tech has a chance to win the game at the end, and they throw a Hail Mary, and it was one of those plays where they did not catch it, but they called it a touchdown. And so at the first instance, I guess the referees thought it was a touchdown. And so they were like, great, touchdown. We got a touchdown. And so the part of it is what's really interesting is it didn't look like a touchdown, but they called the touchdown on the field. Well, then you have to have enough evidence to overturn it. Well, then when they look at the video evidence, there's not enough evidence to overturn it to really say, okay, this is going to go Miami's way. They're going to overturn this call, and it looks like Virginia Tech's going to win the game because they got a call that went their way. And again, it's another reminder of when things don't go our way. You know, God has a way of showing that no, things are going to go my way, His way, above our way, in order to show how good He is and the miraculous work He does in our life. Well, what's really funny in that instance, Miami gets the call overturned. Who was expecting that? And so I found that very interesting in our football news. Another bit of football news that I thought was really cool this week. You saw the game, one of the biggest games of the day. One of the biggest surprises was Kentucky beating Ole Miss last weekend. But one of the biggest games of the week, maybe one of the biggest games of the year. Obviously, we got to see where the SEC championship lands, and then also we got to look at the college football playoff. But Alabama and Georgia played one another. Um, Alabama had a big lead, really, really big lead, and it was like a 37 lead. And then Georgia just comes back, man, and they come back, and then they go um, have a touchdown to be ahead. Well, then miraculously enough, again, you see Jalen Milroe throw a touchdown pass to Ryan Williams, which was one of the craziest catches I've ever seen. This Ryan Williams guy, 17 years old, and man, the way that he was used in that game was unbelievable. Um, I'm always excited to see young people being used for God's purposes. I'm seeing that in my student ministry. And one thing I would want to encourage my listeners this week is to remember who are some of the young people in your life that you need to encourage? Who are some of the people that need uh, leadership opportunities that you can hand them off a leadership opportunity and say, hey, I need you to do this, do it. Um, whether that be handing out something at an outreach event, or maybe it's something where you want to give them a resource and say, hey, why don't you share the gospel with someone? That's something I'm always trying to do in tangible steps with someone to move them forward in pressing the gospel in someone's life. I think those are all clear things. Another miraculous comeback that Georgia does, but ultimately the team that was the really was the best team, most talent, they ended up winning that one. Um, Another thing I think it's pretty cool just to be a reminder is we're going to have 55 straight days of football. Wow. There's some incredible stuff with. So, in one sense, when we look at football news, you got college and NFL football for 55 straight days. So, guys, remember this one when it comes after February and there's no more football. Guys and gals, if you're struggling, get all the football you can right now. Get it all you can because there will be none after February. Um, and we forget about that, how grateful we should be in these moments where we are given such luxury, right? Another story I'm reminded of that is our provision in the wilderness that God gave his people, uh, gave them the manna from heaven. He gave them quail. He gave them water twice. And, they, like Moses literally struck a rock, but it makes the language sound like he struck God, and they received this healing from their Jehovah Rapha, the God who is our healer. And it's such a key reminder during this time. I know that's a silly connection, but it's something we always have to be reminded that, man, like how blessed are we right now? I mean, how blessed am I to be here in the studio, in an office, recording, air conditioning, powers running, and there's still people without power. But then even that is even a luxury. But then even think about some of the people we know in Western North Carolina who have suffered, who have passed away because of the storms and the floods and all these different things. These are all key reminders of things that we're blessed with that we have no business having except because of God's grace. And so my prayer to you today through that is that you would feel that blessing. You would know that blessing that comes from the Lord. It's an unbelievable blessing. Um, and ultimately, let's be honest, we're blessed because we know, if we know Jesus Christ, uh, and we know the Savior that was struck on the cross, we know that we have ultimate healing. We will never go thirsty. We will never go hungry because Jesus is our satisfaction. So that's a very helpful reminder for us today. So I want you to take inventory of your blessings. Take an inventory of all the ways God has blessed you in so many ways. And if there's a way that you can give back, if there's a way that you can do gospel centered ministry through your local church to reach people, through your state convention, whatever uh, denomination you're part of, to reach those who are in need, especially in North Carolina, South Carolina, and even parts of Georgia. Let's be a light in those communities and do that well. I know one thing we're trying to do in the coming weeks is we're going to have a prayer walk, and how prayer, again, reliance on prayer is such a key need during this time. A lot of people say, oh, thank you for your thoughts and prayers. And then you'll hear the other side say, well, thoughts and prayers don't help me in this need. Thoughts and prayers help more than you think they do. The power of prayer is so powerful, we forget how powerful it is and how much God can do through that, and how he can mold people, and how he can uh, connect people to where he wants them to be to glorify his name. So that's something we can remember and be thankful for during this time. Last but not least, I do want to give a big thank you, and uh, just a big welcome and thank you of people who blessed me this past week when I was sick, and we had the stomach bug hit our house. It was not fun. I'm very thankful for my church family. If you're listening to this and you're not a part of a church family, you're missing out. Number one, if you're a Christian, you can't be a Christian alone. In fact, I question if you are a believer if you're not a part of a local church, because they go hand in hand. You can't really say you're a believer and not be a part of the local church, because part of being a believer is being a part of a group and a body of believers that you grow together in and grow spiritually and encourage one another, and cry with one another and have those moments with one another. I know I couldn't do that without my church family. One of the sad moments I do want to bring out this week is not only with the hurricane, but just to hear about two names: Pete Rose, he passed away this week, and then Dikembe Mutombo. Um, man, such big figures. I know Pete Rose has had his controversy. Uh, let's do remember that time is short. Let's remember all these different things in our lives. One things I was really encouraged by is hearing the thing about Dikembe Mutombo, his son brought up, and it was talked about. And I actually have a connection with a friend who, I guess he used to be in the Atlanta area, whatever. He came to know Christ and was baptized in a church near the area of where my friend is, or a Facebook friend that I know of. So it's pretty cool to see that, his son even talked about the blessing his dad was, and all of those different things. Care for those who are around you. And again, this is another reminder. If anything, maybe I might even title this episode "Take Inventory of Your Blessings." Uh, One of the final stories that I think is very evident of this, that we don't always take inventory of our blessings, and we're very focused on the money, the physical, the outward. And this is not a knock against this guy. This guy's name's Matthew Sluka, uh, quarterback for UNLV, had an NIL holdout. So we knew this was coming, right? College football is getting to a point now where, let's just face it, guys, it's becoming semi-pro. Um, Guys are being promised hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, and are told they are making a contract. And so this guy, Matthew Sluka, supposedly was guaranteed, I think, over $100,000, uh, if not more, and did not work out. And so therefore he is taking a halt from where he's saying, hey, I'm redshirting, I'm done for the season. And the dude was the starting quarterback on a team that was undefeated. I mean, it's crazy. So this is just kind of the temperature of our culture. And again, I get where he's coming from. You know, he was promised something and he didn't receive it. So I get that whole aspect. So I want to commend him for standing up for what he believes in. But then also, we're living in a day and age where we can all sit on the other side. People are saying, you owe me. That's a very dangerous place to be in. My prayer is that you would not have that mindset, especially after all we've seen with Hurricane Helene in many different places, flooding. People have lost their homes. People have lost lives. All these different things. Be reminded, take inventory of your blessings, and then be reminded that if you have not trusted Jesus as your Lord and Savior, you need to do so today, because you never know. You never know when the time will come. And I pray that this would be a very helpful reminder to my followers of Christ that are listening in. But then it would also be something of hey, if you're not a believer, listen, you're blessed in so many ways you don't even realize. And so therefore, I want to pray for you that you would realize the person that gives you those blessings. Thank you for joining in on the Prize Podcast, where we talk about how sports and the Christian worldview intersect one another. It's been good to be on this podcast today. If you would like to know more information about me, you can contact me at pursuetheprize@gmail.com. That's at pursuetheprize@gmail.com. Or you can follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at KMoneyDH. It's been a pleasure to be on the show today. Hope you have a great weekend. And I hope, and let's cross our fingers, nothing else crazy happens. I hope to see you back again early next week for another episode of the Prize Podcast. Take care.